Everybody, what's going on? Fabian for Liberty, fabianforliberty.com. So I want to preface this video with basically saying that I'm no fan of Vladimir Putin. Okay, I don't support him. I'm not an apologist for him. He's done a bunch of tyrannical things in Russia, taking away rights of the press, involved in the assassination of journalists, and I mean the list goes on and on. But I'm also somebody who's an advocate of truthful and accurate reporting as to the so-called leaders of the world and who are making the right calls and who are making calls that are even more destructive, leading us towards the path of World War III. And one of those happens to be regarding ISIS, regarding the funding of ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the nut job jihadists that started in Syria, have been in Libya, North Africa, the Middle East, you name it. And we know that the West and their Arab dictatorship countries that back them have been backing these radical Sunni groups now for some time. Now, recall that a year ago, we had Obama on the verge of a strike in Syria. Now, a year later, there's talk that they might send in special forces to go after ISIS, to go after, to basically bomb them. And yesterday I did a whole video about now how a top senator is reporting and claiming that ISIS basically is going to be blowing up major cities. And not just saying that, but all kinds of other stuff, from Homeland Security to the FBI, warning local and state police to be on the lookout. I mean, it's just epic propaganda here. But recall a year ago that Putin wrote an op-ed in the New York Times, and the faux conservatives, and I mean, they were out in just full force, talking about how dare Putin try to, basically lecture us on what to do when he's an oligarch and all this bad, evil stuff. I just want to read a couple of things that Putin wrote a year ago regarding what was going on then in Syria, regarding Obama's strike. And regarding U.S. intervention in Syria, last September, Putin wrote, "A strike would increase violence and unleash a new wave of terrorism. It would undermine multilateral efforts to resolve the Iranian nuclear problem and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and further destabilize the Middle East and North Africa. It would throw the entire system of international law and order out of balance." Now, there wasn't a full-blown strike in Syria, but now we know on record the West has funneled billions of dollars of arms into ISIS, into Al-Qaeda, into the radical elements that were trying to topple the secularist presidency of Bashar al-Assad. Now, the Obama regime, ladies and gentlemen, was the proponent of this, but not alone. Because we know Bush, through all kinds of NGOs and other private groups, was funding Al-Qaeda as well. That's come out on record. I went over that, I think, in my podcast, either this week or last week, where I went over all the facts. People were like, "Oh, you're crazy. The West isn't funding Al-Qaeda." And I'm thinking, all you need to know is just read. Putin went on to talk about the growing Islamist cadres in the Syrian rebel ranks. Remember, John McCain, who would, if he had won the presidency, actually he would have been worse than Obama because we would have been in like nuclear wasteland by now. He actually went to Syria and was taking photographs with some of, like his arm around some of the most ruthless jihadi terrorists that were fighting against al-Assad. Okay, that's on record. You can just Google a McCain with terrorist photo. But here's what Putin said. Mercenaries from Arab countries fighting there and hundreds of militants from Western countries and even Russia are an issue of our own deep concern. Might they not return to our countries with experience acquired in Syria? Well, now that's what everybody's talking about. Now, that list goes on and on. I'll actually post that story down below for you to check out. Putin's been saying this. I remember when Putin had a press conference with, I think it was Cameron at the time from England. And Cameron was all upset because Putin was basically stopping, some kind of UN resolution to help the Syrian rebels fight against Bashar al-Assad. And Putin said at the time, guys, I don't think it's a good idea that maybe we support people and give weapons to the people that are cutting the hearts out of Syrian soldiers, cutting their hearts out and eating it on video. Maybe that's not a good idea. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that. So of course Putin's been right about this. And I think that begs the question, is he right about what's going on in Ukraine? Again, I don't like him. I don't have a dog in that fight. I care about the Republic. But I know that the so-called leadership here in the West is so bankrupt spiritually, financially, just on every front, that perhaps, from time to time, there's been other world leaders that have, that you don't necessarily agree with what they're doing in their own country, but when it comes to the world stage, maybe they're making some sense. And in this case, I think Putin's actually making more sense than anybody that we have in the West, with the exception of people like Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, and others that are libertarian-minded, that recognize the insanity of funding and arming the radical Sunni groups. Now, another thing that I want to touch on here, because everybody's talking about how, all of a sudden it's like this big surprise. And this just exposes the front of how this is all a big scam. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had ISIS, formerly Al-Qaeda, now they're saying it might be Al-Qaeda again. We've had them on record for now almost 3 years, waving the same flag, arming themselves, getting all kinds of financing and backing from the West and the Saudis and Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. This has been a known fact for years. The U.S. intelligence agencies have known about this. And now they're like, oh my God, they've come. They're so well financed and so well armed. It's like nothing we've ever experienced before. It is all bullcrap. And I still continue to say that ISIS is a proxy for war against Russia and China. It is a proxy for the central bankers to basically consolidate power here at home and to prop up the petrodollar. And that's why ISIS is so well financed. That's why they're so well armed. And that's why we've known that they've been around for years now. But the West and the propaganda corporatist media is acting like it's some big surprise. Perhaps if the faux conservatives, the neocons who basically control Obama, if they would have maybe listened to Putin a year ago, maybe they would have been right. Maybe they would have called this a little bit better, actually. What do you think? I'm Fabian for Liberty. Check out FabianForLiberty.com or FabianCalvo.me. Thanks for watching. I'm out.